Okay, hello, welcome to Vinspire, virtual Vinspire. We're so excited that you guys could all be here with us tonight on this very hot North Country day evening. We're really excited to bring Brian Giebel to you tonight. Brian is a certified personal trainer. He's a strength and conditioning coach, and he's the owner of the Strength Bank. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you, Allie. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
We're going to jump right into Brian's story and his presentation. But first, I want to start, Brian, by just getting a little bit of background about you, what brought you to the area, how you arrived at this really, what seems to me, very exciting career, and whatever you'd like to share with us about yourself.
It is exciting. It's work that I love, probably more than anything I've ever done. Before I did this, I lived with my wife, Amy Guglielmo, in New York City, and worked as an investment banker at a couple big firms for 13 sleepless years, where I managed to get myself pretty strung out and was on the verge of getting sick from travel to places like New Orleans weekly, and did that up until 2007 and 2008, at a point where I was diagnosed with a degenerative eye disease and told that I could be blind within 18 months. So that was a bit shocking and made me think about my life a little bit differently. And Amy and I started thinking about other possibilities and what we should do. And by the time we started to figure that out, the doctors started to tell me that I could be productive on Wall Street into my 40s, but that didn't sound great to me. I didn't know what would happen after that. So Amy suggested that we pretend that we were retired then and get some practice with that and see what happened and see where that took us. So we moved up here in February of 2009. It was beautiful. It was 2 degrees. And packed everything into storage and started splitting time between here and Costa Rica. My biggest goal at that point, Amy was writing, my biggest goal at that point was to learn to surf and to be healthy. I was seeking something in my mind that I called physical intelligence, not knowing what that was, but I knew that I'd stopped using my body in ways that I did when I was younger, functioning properly. And I tied the two together and started to do some research and seek out different movement modalities and different flow states and got into surfing. And not surprisingly, everything kind of broke. I separated my shoulder twice. I was still dealing with problems that arose from sitting and traveling. I had chronic pain in my neck and my shoulders. I wasn't breathing well. I wasn't terribly healthy emotionally. So I started to seek out help in Plattsburgh and Costa Rica. There are a number of people that were tremendously helpful to me here, including Brian Osborne and Mary Bardis and Brian Trascos, number of doctors, massage therapists, and all of them were tremendously generous with their knowledge and continued to share with me and continued to help me work through these things. So along the way, I got meningitis, my body tingled for 1.5 years, and my eyes deteriorated. But the upside of that was that I found what I was looking for in terms of what physical intelligence meant to me. And my diminished eyesight made me start to look at how people moved more closely and identify people by how they move. So I got super interested in movement and continued to read and hire coaches and seek out information. And that led me to coaching starting in 2014. So I've been lucky enough since then to work with a group of super inspirational people locally and throughout the country, actually. Young athletes, older athletes, people that have been injured, people that are just searching the way that I was. And it's been tremendously rewarding, and the work continues to unfold for me. I continue to learn more about myself and more about people. So we're going to get into it.
Awesome. We have a presentation that Brian has prepared. And so Dina's going to share her screen with us. I love the title of this, Move for Life, Retirement Planning for Your Body. That just, it feels intuitive. It feels like the right thing for us to be paying attention to.
It's hard sometimes. It's been tough the last couple months, I have to admit.
Yeah.
So the objective here is to introduce us to some movements that we can do on a daily basis. We say for 10 minutes, call it a 10-minute transformation. I want to be clear that we can fit any of the pieces of this puzzle that I'm going to show you together on a daily or a consistent basis and benefit tremendously from them. If you breathe for 10 minutes a day and that's it, your life will be better. Your body will function better. If you do joint circles or any of the things that we cover, just adding that 5 or 10 minutes a day when you get out of bed in the morning or the evening will help you function better regardless of what level of movement you have right now. So, okay. Movement is medicine. Movement's been a healing modality for me, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And much of what I studied is in here. I started at the beginning. I started with movements that a baby uses. Read some things written by a guy named Tim Anderson and studied dynamic neuromuscular stabilization, DNS, and started moving around like a baby and looking like a kook on the beach. So we're going to show you some of that. All right, to feel, live, and age better, our objectives are to move and feel better, of course, reduce pain and discomfort. We've all had some version of that. And the strategy that we're going to adopt to do that is to invest frequently in low-risk, high-reward movements. I call it mobility insurance. There's a high premium on not having mobility in the United States and worldwide. It becomes very costly if you're not mobile. So the first thing we're going to focus on is breathing. We have a list here of things that we're going to go through, and you can reflect back and review those. Main focus is mobility. And for mobility, unlike strength, consistency is the key.
Can I just add quickly, Brian, that Brian is going to share this presentation with us to share with all of you. So if you're really interested, you don't have to take notes or anything. We can all go back and scroll through at our leisure and do it along with him at another time.
Great. Yeah, I would love for you to use me and this as a reference. All right, so the first thing we want to do is test our breathing. And we can do that seated. Just put your hands on your belly. Your tongue should be on the roof of your mouth, behind your front teeth, where it usually goes naturally, unless you're a mouth breather like me. I want you to inhale deeply through your nose and see if your belly moves. Take a few breaths. I want you also to observe, see if your shoulders come up when you breathe, if you feel anything in your chest and your neck. All right. Any observations there? All right, from there, we want to put your hands by your side or on your side. So kind of cupping your hands around your sides at your waist. So around close to your belly button. Tongue on the roof of the mouth again. Inhaling through your nose. I want you to see if you can expand laterally outward into your hands there. And that's a little more difficult. But ultimately, that's where we want to go. Now, babies are born to do this. They do this naturally. Kids tend to be able to do this really well and easily until they're about 5, until we put them in school, until we sit them down. Yeah. I don't know what people observe there. If you have neck and shoulder pain, you had difficulty breathing into your stomach and expanding laterally through your rib cage, then we definitely need to work on breathing. If you're not breathing well, you're not functioning optimally. We're going to advance here. Next slide here. Okay, there's a huge list of reasons why we should work on breathing. There are books dedicated to this. I have some links for them in the back. From a movement standpoint, the one that I'm focused on with people in my sessions is how stability improves mobility. So if we're able to breathe properly, if we're able to use our diaphragm to breathe, if we're able to expand laterally, then we're supporting our spine. So our nervous system always prioritizes itself. If you're starving, your brain is going to get fed first before anything else. All right, we also protect the spinal column and the spinal cord. So if you don't have stability, if you're not stable in your hips or around your spine, your body's not going to let your legs wander off to the side, or your arms even. And this can be tested. You can test a position, one of these things that will show you. Pause, take 10 deep breaths using your diaphragm, and then reassume that position, and you should see more mobility. I'm going to advance to the next slide here. All right, so the way that we breathe, if you're having trouble breathing optimally, expanding horizontally or laterally, feeling it in your belly and your sides, we want to create a canister. And what I mean by that is being able to stack your rib cage over your pelvis in a column. All right, and we're playing one of the videos, but there are a number of ways to do this depending on preferences and depending on what you're looking for. I like this hook lying position. Effectively, all of these 4 positions, I hope you can see those, put you in a position where your diaphragm and pelvic floor will engage more automatically and help you to practice breathing properly and expanding through your rib cage completely. Again, the tongue's on the roof of the mouth. Chin's tucked here. We want a long neck. I'd recommend practicing any of these positions. What we find, especially if you're a neck breather, and some of us are super dominant in our necks, I know I was, if you can sit down and do a deep squat or replicate that position somehow, even laying on your back, you're going to find that you can breathe into your back and expand through your upper back and your ribs much more naturally. In fact, you won't be able to breathe with your neck in those positions, especially the squat. Next slide.
Brian, I just have to share with you that that's my favorite learning posture. My physical therapist gave me that to do after I had kids, to teach me how to relax my pelvic floor. And it's very good for your releasing your hips.
Yeah, it's amazing, right?
Yeah, I feel like I've told a number of people on this call about it. It's very helpful.
Provides a tremendous amount of stability. The other thing that I use it for is to teach people how to exhale. We don't think about exhaling very much. As when we inhale, we can think about inhaling deeply. On the exhale, we just kind of quit and let the air come out. I'm going to show you some positions, including the positions in the former slide, that help you learn how to use your obliques to breathe, which is a much different thing. If you have trouble expanding laterally through your sides, your oblique muscles will help a ton. So big exhales in any of the positions that we showed previously and on this slide will help you learn where your obliques are. And those exhales can come out of your mouth. Now, how we breathe to relax, we have in this slide, we can do this a couple different ways. The easiest way is just to make your exhale longer than your inhale, just a little bit. All right, if you inhale for a 4 count, exhale for 5, you're getting there, okay? If you can make that longer, even better. I started to get nervous before this presentation, started to do some box breathing. Find it super effective for anxiety. Yeah, before sleep for sure, just to get you out of fight or flight. I've coached people through this in the hospital to help address pain, and it's been super effective. And then 4-7-8 breathing. I'm less familiar with 4-7-8 breathing. I use it when I have AFib, and I find it effective. I know people use it in therapeutic sessions. Dr. Andrew Weil is a big proponent of 4-7-8 breathing. I would try any and all of these, and try different positions as well. If you look at the bottom slide here, you'll notice that this person has their head raised up on a pillow. Some of us, if you try to lay flat, especially if you're kyphotic, head forward, it can feel a little awkward. Just go ahead and prop your head up.
Like the 90-degree angle.
Yeah, the 90 is great. Okay.
Brian, in meditation, I use the 478, and it's wonderful. Yeah,
It's great, right?
it really is.
What kind of position do you use when you meditate?
I'm actually, what I'm speaking of right now is when I go to bed. So I'm prone in bed with a pillow under my head and do 478.
Great. I'm going to practice that more too. All right, soft tissue work. We all talked a little bit earlier about how we're dying to have massages. I can't wait. I've been texting my therapist. In the meantime, there's a lot that we can do on our own with foam rollers, foam balls, lacrosse balls. These are things that we can and should be doing carefully. And I'm going to give you some guidelines to make sure that you know if you're going too far. And I believe on the next page, so there are a number of reasons to do this. All right, we address the fascia and massage our muscles and help with mobility. If you look under the slide or under the video on this page, there are some links to mobility tools that I recommend. High density foam rollers. Yeah, great. There's a 5-inch foam ball that I love. I recommend that people have lacrosse balls and tennis balls around. And then if you're one of those people that has a pain on either side of their scapula, and a lot of people have them for different reasons, and we can talk about that. There's a link to a little expandable peanut thing that hits some of those spots perfectly and helps with the neck as well. The video on this page, I would highly recommend going back to. This trainer's great. He works with some people that I work with in Costa Rica, and this offers you a full foam rolling routine. You don't have to do the whole thing. It's 20 minutes worth at least, but it will teach you some of the techniques. And we can remember that fascia runs from the bottom of the feet to the top of your head. So just rolling the bottoms of your feet on a lacrosse ball or a tennis ball or a golf ball can affect how your neck moves and affect headaches even. So everything's linked together. Do you guys use foam rollers regularly?
I have one. I don't use it regularly, I'm sorry to say, because when I do use it, it feels so good.
Yeah, initially, if you haven't used one before, initially when you start, it won't feel great. And that's an indication that you need it. However, if your body starts to fight back, if your muscles start to tighten and resist it, you need to stop. If you start to sweat, that's your nervous system telling you that it's too much.
Okay.
All right, we are going to get into the movements after this slide. We moved this slide up here because part of the emphasis that I have in working with clients and my own movement practices is to continually learn new things with hands and feet, especially fingers and toes. So much of our brain is dedicated to moving our fingers and toes. Our big human brains were built by and for movement. So everything that I'm reading indicates that movement, especially learning new things with fingers and toes, is the best thing that you can do for your brain. Crossword puzzles, Sudoku don't do much. Movement does a ton. If you can add music, if you can add group exercise is great if you're doing the same thing. If you can be outdoors, even better. But if you look at this video and start to play with your toes, the first thing we're doing is lifting our big toe up and pressing the other 4 toes down. And then the reverse of that, pressing the big toe down into the floor and lifting the other 4 up. And that can be really difficult for people.
You can use your fingers.
Yeah, the way you coach your brain into using your toes independently, and the way Allie and I have, is by using your fingers to hold certain toes down until you can get it done on your own. And there are a number of steps. The last step is the most difficult. It's pushing your pinky toe and your big toe into the floor while lifting the other 3 toes, which until last Christmas I thought was impossible.
How long did it take you?
it took me 2 years to realize my pinky toe was not just decorative. And then it took me a couple hours by the pool in Costa Rica playing with my hands and toes to figure out the big toe, pinky toe sequence.
I like this because it seems so simple. And then when you sit down to actually do it, it is quite challenging for me. But it seems like something that you should be able to just do. You know, it's your body. You should be able to just move your toes in the way you want them to. And it is practice. I'm excited to really do more with this.
It's great. It is challenging in a great way. And your feet are your foundation. So if your feet are off, you know, if the foundation of your house is off, then that compromises the stability and the strength of your entire house. So the big toe, your ability to press your big toe into the floor, is linked to the function of your butt, ability to flex your glute muscles. Pinky toe is attached to the muscular that runs all the way up the side of your body. So these things become important for strength reasons too.
Balance.
Okay, so now let's get into the movements. Start with the head, because the body always follows the head. This feels great to me. You can do this seated. We're gonna do a test first. So sit up straight, put your hands down by your side. We want the shoulders away from your ears. And then we want to stay in motion. We never want to pause, but I'd like you to take your chin down to your chest and then look up to the ceiling. You may feel tightness in your upper back as you push your chin down.
And we should be breathing while we do this, right?
You should. And then especially as you look up, we don't want to pause back there. We don't want to put pressure on those discs. And we want the eyes to lead the way. This is to help you train your vestibular system, your balance system as well. So we want to get a lot of these movements, we want to benefit us in a number of ways. So this helps loosen things up, helps with our balance. Strengthen the back of your neck actually is linked to tightness in your hamstrings. If you have a weak posterior neck, your hamstrings are probably tight as well. And most of us do have weakness in the back of our shoulders and our neck because we're so rounded forward on a daily basis. Everything becomes tight in the front of our body and overly strong and loose and weak in the back of our body. So posturally, we all need to strengthen the back of our bodies. All right, let's look at some scanning and nodding on the next slide. All right, so I'm in a kneeling position at the top and nodding. I'm scanning from what we call a Sphinx position in the bottom. We don't need to see any of these. So Sphinx is, effectively you can do it seated. You can cross your hands in front of you over your chest and sit up tall and your eyes lead the way. And let your shoulders rotate around and look behind you. And then go to the other side. And compare one side to the other. Usually there's one side that's easier for us. We have a greater range of motion going one way versus the other. All right, the scanning on your belly, we also do this on all fours, gives us a great stretch through the lats. People tend to love this. It feels really good. And our eyes are leading the way, scanning side to side. All right, and the next slide, you'll see this video, joint circles, just a basic way to get every joint in your body to get a full range of motion every day. It doesn't take long, it doesn't take a ton of effort. I don't love the neck stuff in this, all right? I'd stick with nodding and scanning. They have more rolling in this. I would skip the neck and go through everything else. And if you continue to do this consistently, if you continue to demand this from your body will open up and allow you to move more, especially if you're incorporating breathing and some of the other things that we have coming to make you more stable through your center. I have a question there that's rigid body equals rigid brain equals rigid body. In my experience in gyms and just in general, and I've been this person, if you don't have a growth mindset, if you're not open-minded, your body tends to be closed down as well, is what I've observed. I'd be happy to hear what others think there.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, we're going to skip past this. I want this here as a reference. People tend to not know how to stretch their hip flexors. I'll give you a hint. This guy in this photo is not doing it properly. You see his back's arched. All the movement's coming out of his low back rather than stretching his hip flexors. If you sit all day, we need to stretch our hip flexors and our quads. Let's get to the next slide. We'll keep this here as a reference as well. The other thing that happens as we sit at a desk is we start to, start to push our thoracic spine, our mid-back backward, and start to get rounded back there. Drastically limits our rotation. So if you're a rotational athlete in any way, if you're a golfer, you play tennis, then you start to become limited and using muscles that you don't necessarily need to. We want drive to come from your hips and your core muscle, not your rotator cuff, not swinging your arms. So there are a couple things in here that we can revisit. What you'll notice going through all of this is that I have some props doing a lot of this on the floor, all right? I find it extremely beneficial. Touch is really meaningful to all of us. I can't see well. I have a proprioceptive deficit, so just patting myself, just getting the feedback from the floor, from the ground, becomes super important, and really does a lot for me mentally as well in stimulating my mind.
I like to see that there's props here because I like this posture. We do this in yoga sometimes, and I can't always get my knee to the floor, so it's nice to have a block or a bolster or a pillow or a blanket kind of stuffed under you so you can really relax into the stretch. Is that what he's doing there?
Yeah. So you'll see, I don't know if you can see in the bottom one.
Yeah.
You know, I have that knee propped up a little bit, and I've worked to a point where my hand can go all the way to the floor. If it doesn't, if the arm's just hanging in space, it tends to just create some tension. You don't really get to relax into it. So the ways that we modify this, we lift that knee a little higher on a bolster, or we put something under the arm on the other side.
Awesome. I didn't realize that was you.
My big head.
I've never seen you without your glasses on.
It's true.
Some people have never seen me with glasses on.
Or shirt on.
The top movement, you can roll that. Is really great unless you have had vertigo, and then you want to stay away from that.
Okay.
But we get a full rotation. We get a lot of feel. We get to open up the hips, turn our head and shoulders. I really love that egg roll. All right, next slide. Let's play this. All right, that's the backyard. I'm just going wide knees here. Feet can be in a comfortable position, and you come down to your elbows. It's a great one in the morning just to open up your hips and feel your lower back. We also, by pressing our elbows into the mat there, we start to work on some muscles that really get kind of fatigued. And in my experience with clients, this muscle called the serratus anterior on the front of your rib cage tends to get sleepy on people. And if that doesn't work, shoulders come up and your shoulder function starts to be compromised. So this I love as a movement. I definitely think that's a big money movement. Low risk, easy to do, high payoff.
Brian, when I do something like that in that position, my foot cramps. Is there anything you can do about that?
Yeah. Try rolling it. Try rolling the bottom of your foot, rolling your calf, and then going back into that position. I have the same problem sometimes.
Yeah.
The other thing you can do is kind of dig your toes into the mat before you get into this position and try again. But I know that feeling, and foot cramps are horrible. All right, you guys don't have to try this now. This is a pretty revelatory movement, if I said that properly. So I love rocking for a number of reasons. This guy's going to chat for a while, but You come down on all fours, shoulders stacked over the wrists, and then with your eyes up, you just rock forward a little bit, hold your position, and reach forward with one arm. You will feel abs, pelvic floor, a lot of stuff around your spine kick in to stabilize you without any work. Shoulder will have to stabilize. There's a lot going on there. And then there's some advanced cues to make that more difficult, but test this on yourself. And if it hurts your wrists, find a stair possibly or a pad where you can wrap your fingers around instead of having them flat on the floor. But I would definitely try this as a test when you have a chance. And then after that, we can get into some quadruped rocking, which is the next slide. All right, can we play that top slide, Dina? Maybe we'll be able to see this guy rocking.
You can move the people if you want.
I'm fine. So this guy's just on all fours, keeping his head up. By keeping our head up, as long as it's comfortable, if your neck hurts, put it down. By keeping our head up, we're just helping train that vestibular system. But if you watch this rocking motion, all right, it doesn't look like much, but we're teaching our scapulas to move properly. We're restoring the natural curvature of our spine. We're getting wrist and finger mobility out of this. If he digs his toes into the mat, we're getting toe and ankle mobility. And we're teaching the pectoral muscles, the chest, and the lat muscles in the back to work together. This helped me heal from shoulder injuries. It's helped a lot of people. And it's soothing. I mean, babies rock. We all rock for a reason. Add some humming in here. Breathe. Feels great. Super healing.
Music.
All right, I think we can move on to the next one.
Gas fans too.
Oh, good. Yeah. Okay, a couple different bird dogs here. All right, in the top one, I go through some progressions to teach you how to make it easier or more difficult. You'll see in the top one, I have my toes dug into the mat. If I relax those toes and point my feet instead, that makes the bird dog more difficult. And then at the bottom, we have what we're calling a dynamic bird dog, or what YouTube will call a dynamic bird dog. What we're adding here is a touch. I love a contralateral touch, you know, crossing midline, touching left shoulder with right hand, for example, or right elbow to left knee. Again, we're getting sensory feedback, crossing midline. A lot of educators know it's supposed to prepare you to learn. Somewhat controversial lately, but worth a shot. All of these movements, we want to pretend that these can be quite easy for some people, but we want to slow it down and pretend that there's a drink balanced on your sacrum, on your low back. All right, and keep those hips super still, and then we really figure out if we have some core stability. We don't want to rock back and forth there. So that's how we make that challenging, and we make a tight fist as well. All right, we can unmute for this. How many tight necks do we have out here? Sore traps, tight necks. Yeah, really common.
I don't think we can unmute, actually.
Okay, sorry. All right, it's super common, and what I find, I had this problem. I find it a lot with people that come into the gym. The biggest problems I find, everyone's glutes kind of fall asleep, and regardless of whether you have abs or not, I saw an anatomist in New York City when I was suffering through pain and not breathing great. I had 8 abs. I looked great with my shirt off. My neck killed, and everything that I was supposed to be doing with my abs, I did with my neck. So the way that we get out of that, the tongue on the roof of the mouth actually helps, or is supposed to help. And then we just coach our way into using abs instead of neck. And the way that she's doing it is in a 90-90 position, laying on her back, keeping your neck relaxed, and reaching up. I have a link to a stability ball crush that we can show as well. In this case, a young woman is lifting her head, but initially I have people just relax their head, squeeze that ball between their knees and elbows, and we discover where the abs are. What's amazing is the first day that people do this, they might hold it for 5 seconds and then turn and look at me like frightened because they're exhausted quickly. But within 2-3 sessions, it becomes much better. The stamina, the control becomes much better. And we start to get some relief out of the neck as well. Okay. Amy's been shooting a bunch of videos for me, and most of them are awful. This one we decided it was a good idea to dress me, I dressed in all black, and we had a nice gray and black background, so it just looks like a giant moon face floating around until I get in a position. I think there's one that's bent over where you can see my butt crack also, which is great. So from here, we migrated to power clashing and camo and awful patterns so you can see my body moving. But this exercise looks simple, is simple. We're digging our heels into the floor, squeezing something between our knees, pulling heel towards butt, and then getting a big inhale as we relax. And we want to exhale with force and flatten that back. At the end of that exhale is where you really feel the obliques, the muscles on the side of your body. And that becomes really valuable. A lot of older people have trouble getting oxygen. And it's partly because they're not breathing fully. They can inhale okay, can't exhale great. And we talked earlier about just kind of giving up on the exhale. We actually want a kind of corset using our obliques. And everyone that works with me develops obliques. So we want to use our obliques as a corset to squeeze that air out, and our mouth is open. We're kind of blowing out a flame, getting as much air out as possible, and using our muscles to exhale. And we want to be able to use those muscles to inhale and exhale for the remainder of our lives. That will keep us stable. That's real core strength, real stability, and oxygen is a very important drug, obviously. All right. Is your butt sleepy? We call it gluteal amnesia. You can test this sit in your chair. Just see if you can squeeze your butt cheeks together or get some kind of contraction if you slide back and forth and feel that. I have a test here in the video at the top that we don't need to see, but basically the easiest way to test is to stand up, put your hands on your butt so that your mind knows which muscles you're trying to contract. That touch actually helps. And then using your glutes, not your hands. I don't think I made it clear in that video. You want to squeeze your butt cheeks together. If you can do that, your glutes are not asleep. All right. Sitting causes, if you do have gluteal amnesia, if your butt doesn't work, likely caused by sitting. A couple reasons for that. One of them is tight hips, and we have a way in here for you to test that. If you're too tight in the front of your hips, which happens to us, happened to me, you need to go back and visit that hip flexor stretch. Go ahead and test how tight your hips are. But if your hips are tight, when you walk, you can't extend your foot behind you, and you can't engage that glute. And that big toe comes back as well. You want to be able to push that toe into the ground and extend your foot back behind you. The other thing that prevents you from extending your foot back behind you as you stride is ankle mobility. And there's a test for ankle mobility in that bottom video. Essentially, with a flat foot, we want to be able to push our knee forward so that our knee is at least, I say 2 to 5 inches in the video. If you have 2 inches, that's good. We need 4 inches to squat properly. All right. This gets diminished, especially in people who sit a lot, but runners, mobility is not essential for runners. If you're too mobile and you're a runner, the energy that you put into the ground doesn't get put back into your stride efficiently. So a lot of runners tend to lack ankle mobility, but ultimately that hurts their ability to extend. That means that their hip muscles, their butt doesn't work great, and they become less efficient runners, and they start to shuffle, their butt gets flat, their hips get tight, and their back starts to hurt. a lot of stuff starts to break down at that point. So sleepy butt is the thing. And you want to fix that.
Does it hurt your back? What does it lead to?
Yeah, it leads to back pain. If you get pain in your flanks, and I see a lot of people with that, that's a quadratus lumborum muscles. So if the butt doesn't work and doesn't stabilize your legs and your hips, then you move up the chain and all that stability, your body tries to get that stability from your low back, and you'll get some tightness in the flank area that needs to be released. So the whole host of problems can come from that. And if you're a man, the muscles that start to atrophy first are butt, shoulder, triceps. So to look younger, shoulders, butt, triceps. Next slide. All right, we have videos for a couple different bridges here. The bottom one was developed by a doctor in Canada named Stuart McGill, who is kind of the back guru that said crunches aren't good for us. We get a lot out of this exercise. Your elbow's on the ground, you need some shoulder stability. You get some forward to back or back to forward, kind of hip thrust movement to engage the glute. And since we're on our side, we're getting the side of our butt as well, which is the musculature that is most responsible for hip stability. So there are a couple of progressions in here. I would definitely revisit those and take a look at the video above when you get a chance to. If you have a foam roller at home, this is kind of where I start with clients who have gluteal amnesia. Just a good way to explore and find a way to squeeze those butt cheeks and reestablish that connection. Opens your hips, opens your chest, strengthens the back of your body. As we said before with posture, we want to strengthen the back and open the front. All right, next slide. Okay, we can skip through these. This is the last part. These poses are really beneficial. These can take more time. There's an assisted squat. Try it. Try to breathe there. I like to put a foam roller under my butt. You can sit on something and relax. There are many reasons that we need to squat. A lot of different cultures already do. Hanging opens up a lot, helps us relax. And then the combo that I use with clients as a cool down to get them to start recover, to take them out of fight or flight, is a combination where I set a bar at a certain height or use a band and do a combination of sitting and hanging and deep breathing. Just to get us out of fight or flight, start to open things up and initiate that recovery. People in gyms, bodybuilders tend to have this bias where their chest is out, back is arched, booty's kind of tilted up. There's some athletes that look like that too, for some reasons that we won't get into today. But chest out, that's fight posture, right? And if you want to push your chest out, try to breathe in that position. Stick your chest out, arch your back. It's really difficult to be a belly breather in that position. All right. And it causes people to stay kind of angry and in this persistent sympathetic overdrive. They don't sleep well. They don't recover well. They don't behave great. It makes 8 hours in a gym with a bunch of dudes, kind of toxic, kind of hard. But we want to do some things after we're in the gym or while we're in the gym too. If you work with me, we're very conscious of posture for function and for all the other reasons to help you get out of fight or flight. We're trying to heal in the gym. And then beyond that, here's a review for you of stuff that we did, some links to my social media. On the next page, my contact information is there. On the next page, I think we have some references for some reading. Oh, more about me. I don't think you need that.
Thanks.
And some links. Good. Okay. This reading, I think, is all accessible to anyone and could all be interesting. There's The Joy of Movement is great. Story of the Human Body is great. There's some good stuff in there if you're a musician. The Rise of Superman, if you're any kind of athlete, thrill seeker athlete, explains flow states and the benefits of getting into flow states for any number of reasons. A lot of it's movement based, and a lot of it is giving based, and a lot of it is helping other people. I find that my time in the gym, on a good day when it's right, I'm in flow the whole time. So, Allie, can we open it up now for questions?
Yeah, anybody that has questions, if you want, you can pop your mute off, or you can write in the chat. I feel I just am really listening to the words that you're using as you're describing what you do, and it is very inspiring to me as somebody who likes to practice yoga. I feel like these are very approachable postures, that positions that I maybe have been in a different way, but you're adding more movement to them. And I really love how approachable this the resources that you've shared are. It makes me feel like, wow, I can get into this gym mentality, but the way you describe it with your physical intelligence and trying to heal in the gym, it's very inspiring, and it is also said in a really gentle but empowering way, and I really appreciate that. That really resonates with me.
Thanks, Allie. I think there are a lot of people that are surprised when they come into the gym. People's perception of training and trainers and gyms is skewed by a number of things, including just going to gyms. But if you watch The Biggest Loser, there's someone yelling at you, and
yes.
I don't find it helpful. I don't find it entertaining. I just don't find those environments helpful to healing and progressing and learning. And I've been lucky enough to be able to go to yoga classes with your mom, and then stay for Qigong with Brian Osborne, for example, and to sample different movement practices and increase my movement vocabulary along the way. And I know how important that is. And I hear from clients really quickly that their lives change, that their brains feel good, that they feel good about doing something to help their own cause, something to help their brain. And they're relieved that I'm not some jerk that's trying to, you're going to sweat, but I think the perception of a lot of gyms is still that, like, this is a place that we go to punish ourselves and
very threatening almost.
Yeah.
That's not the idea at all.
No, the no pain, no gain thing is not smart. It's proven not to be effective, but bodybuilding is still the pervasive modality in a lot of this stuff. And it's not for health.
Right.
I'll just say it that way. It's for looks. I mean, there are a lot of people that look great that can't breathe at all. And I've been one of them, tight intercostals, tight around the ribs, super tight abs. We've been taught to suck in our stomachs all the time.
Grumpy, angry.
Grumpy.
So we have go ahead, Dana.
No, I was just wondering, in the times of COVID, I think we mentioned this before we started, how do we get back into the gym without fear? I mean, I love the gym. I love group exercise. I'm going to read the book that you suggested, and I'm scared to death to go back to the gym.
Yeah. It's a great question. I think it has to start outdoors. I think it should anyway.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot. There's some links earlier in the presentation. I started writing about the benefits of exercising outdoors in 2016 or 2017. I think that's the best way, because if you are someone who is into group exercise, I'm a little introverted for it, but I understand the benefits. Like there's nothing like it in terms of.
Oh yeah, we challenge each other. I mean, it's not like jarhead type stuff, but it's you're trying to best the other person. You're trying to run a little harder. You're trying to do a few more reps, and it's all in good fun. And I like the outdoor idea.
Yeah, I mean, I really kind of focus on mind, body plus community, and the community aspect I think is the most important one. And if you're all doing the same routine together, that's a bonding environment. We now know that runner's high takes 20 minutes of moderate exercise. And what it is, it's not endorphins, it's a release of cannabinoids. Exercise can't be too hard, it can't be too easy, but we basically get this high from this release of cannabinoids, which make us more receptive to bonding with people in a very real way. So I miss it tremendously. I understand how anyone who does group exercise would be really missing that bonding environment and that feedback. I think it has to start outdoors. I started seeing some people doing step up at the tennis court up in Clinton as a way.
I see people on Fox Hill, they're social distancing, they're running up the hill, and they've got kettlebells and stuff at the bottom. So that might be an idea.
Yeah, I think Fox Hill's great. Keeping equipment clean is tough. The rec center was never clean to begin with, so
Park did a good job. Park did an okay job, and I was able to get I'm going to bring, when I do go back to the gym, I'm bringing my own Lysol wipes.
Yeah.
Sure. And actually the rec center did a good job. They had people coming in and volunteering, like all through the COVID stuff. But it's just difficult to keep gyms clean.
Right.
And to distance.
What's a good posture or exercise you could do in a meeting setting, if it's like through Zoom or you're sitting around a conference table with people, like a good way to start your meeting? Maybe something with your breath, or do you have a any kind of breathing. I like that hands on your side posture. Head nods tend to be relaxing as well, but then you get to look up everyone's nostrils. I like the hands on your hips because it's also like the superpower pose, right? The feel good about yourself pose.
Yeah, take up some space, get tall. I mean, all that stuff matters too. I mean, position really matters for your mood. We talked about being in fight position.
Right.
I work with teenage girls who are amazing athletes. Amazing athletes tend not to love things they aren't great at. So sometimes when I tell them to do something that challenges them, I'll get just a fold and a hanging head, and I have to have them start over, turn around, come back, take up some space, get tall, take in a deep breath, and attack it from that standpoint.
Sally had a question. She says, you mentioned what muscles go first on men. What about women?
I'm gonna have to
Women are perfect.
Women are perfect. I'm gonna have to do some research. The butt thing is interesting. Our hips are all tight. We really get tight in the front. I'd say glutes probably for everyone. I'll do some more research for you, but it's easy to lose track of that.
I just turned 35 over the winter, and someone told me that when women turn around the age of 35, women start losing all muscle mass. So at 35, you really need to start ramping up your building of muscle and continue it throughout your life, because at this age, you start losing muscle mass. Is that true?
Yes. And more so as we go on. Men too, but a little more slowly. That testosterone advantage is real, but all of us have to work harder as we get older. And we have to work more. I don't know if I answered your question completely, Allie.
No, kind of.
Women need to lift weights.
Yeah. We need to lift weights.
Sorry. Go ahead. I'll ask my question.
Okay. So we all need to lift weights. We all need to be strong. I mean, part of the reason I called my weird business the Strength Bank is because it's memorable. But the other is that, like investing, we benefit from doing it early and often. We've learned what muscle memory is, and what it is when you build muscle, the nuclei stays behind for the remainder of your life. So you don't lose that cell, and you don't really lose fat cells throughout your life either. So you can, if you gain muscle as a child or as a teen, you're able to call that back essentially as you get older, which becomes critically important because the muscle becomes a more valuable asset. It's in more demand and less available as you get older, and sarcopenia, dynopenia, loss of muscle, loss of strength is chronic. It's part of aging, but that's part of what can make you immobile and can make your life suddenly significantly more costly and challenging.
It's uplifting.
Good way to end.
On a high note. Natalie, did you have a question?
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the toe exercises that you kind of went over, in the beginning. I wonder if you could talk about those again and just reiterate that connection, like how it's connecting to your brain or whatever. And then do you have to do it standing up, or can you do it when you're sitting? I mean, is there a...
It doesn't matter, but I would recommend starting seated so that you can use your hands to assist, so that you can press down on the toes that you want to stay down.
Jeff's doing it now.
Just going for it.
He's trying.
So I can't remember the numbers, but there's a tremendous amount of space in our brains committed to dexterity of our fingers and toes. So just learning new things and reestablishing those connections is extremely beneficial mentally. And being able to move those independently is a great ongoing challenge for your brain that affects your ability to call on musculature throughout your body as well. So there are some other patterns beyond the ones that I showed you. You should play with all of them. And then we can play with music. I don't know, people paint with their feet. It's incredible.
Look at me.
Were you looking for something more than that, Natalie?
No, I like doing the exercise.
I do too.
And I rarely like doing anything like that, but exercising. But I just wondered, how, the stimulation, I understand it does connect you to, your body more. And it was just intriguing to me. And I don't think I could do it standing up, but I surely can do it sitting down. So I just want to make sure I was doing it correctly.
Yeah, great. Yeah, start seated and then try it in a squat. Try it with your feet on the wall and a flat back.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
That was the yoga twist thing that you know.
Oh yeah, and I've been having a tremendous amount of difficulty with motivation while we've been locked inside. So just taking the writer's approach of kind of small assignments, write a paragraph today, just put correct toes or yoga toes in between my toes. I've been working on my feet, and then do a little kind of mental connection, toe movement, maybe some calf raises, because something I've never done, but just some signs of progress, giving myself a little challenge, and then otherwise trying to survive.
Jeff and Paul, do you have a question?
No questions.
You unmuted.
I know, I unmuted just because I wanted you to hear our groovy little banter and repartee. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
I miss that voice. Where's your harmonica, Jeff?
Well, I'm waiting for Brian to come up with some mouth exercises for me.
Coming.
But you know what? I really found those toe exercises interesting. So I'm glad Natalie asked you again, because it's kind of fun.
That's great. And you're playing music. We have done some research about singing and the ways that keeps you young and happy.
Yeah, apparently you can't sing or you get COVID-19 now.
Okay.
That's a problem.
Don't sing on people.
Right. Don't sing towards people.
So, do you have any tips for keeping your big toe and little toe down and lifting up your three middle toes? Because that really seems impossible to me.
Yes, it seemed impossible for me too. Hold the big toe and the pinky down with your hands.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right.
Until you get
And train it that way, and then retest without your hands.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's
Adrian
the
says he's
one.
going to try to play piano with his toes.
Awesome. Record that, Dana. Go ahead,
Are
Brian.
you ready to stop the recording? And on that note,
Right. Any other questions? You guys, thank you so much, everyone, for coming and participating. And it was, Brian, this has really been really wonderful. I feel very excited to try some of these videos that you shared. And I really appreciate your practical and approachable way that you presented this. I feel encouraged. And I think right now we could all use some encouragement for ways to move our body. And so I hope everybody goes home or is,
That's fine.
I don't know.
everybody goes home and does what? We're already at home. I'm with you, Allie.
Try it. We are going to share your presentation to the Facebook page, but if anybody needs it emailed directly to them, you can email us. And really, thank you so much.
Thank you all. That was super fun, and there's more to build on. Please use me as a resource. There are more movements if you want to build that practice, and if there's anything you need to work on specifically, there are ways to get strong simply. There are ways to continue to work on mobility in other ways too. So I'd love to be a resource. It's really rewarding to help the community and to connect with people this way.
Awesome.